Hollywood's toughest working-class heroes stepped onto the set of The View, expecting a simple interview, but it spiraled into one of the most intense live moments in television history. Mark Wahlberg came to talk about his new movie, yet what he found waiting for him was nothing short of an ambush. If you thought you'd seen celebrity meltdowns before, buckle up. This clash between Mark and Beha wasn't just fiery. It was a full-blown battle of pride, past mistakes, and the definition of decency, all under the unrelenting gaze of millions of viewers. The cameras rolled and the View studio audience cheered as Mark Wahlberg walked on stage, his confident Boston swagger muted just slightly by the thick tension in the air. He wore a navy suit and an easy smile, shaking hands with the co-hosts as the applause settled. He sat at the guest chair, nodding warmly to Whoopi and Sunny before his gaze finally fell on Beha, whose grin already carried a hint of something sharper. "Welcome back to The View," Joy began, leaning into her microphone with a glint in her eye. "We're joined today by actor and producer Mark Wahlberg, who's here to promote his latest film." The faint pause after latest film didn't go unnoticed. Mark kept his smile polite. "Thanks, Joy. Always a pleasure to be here." Joy's head tilted slightly, the corners of her lips curling. "Oh, I bet it is," she said, her voice edged with sarcasm. "You know, Mark, you've had quite a career. Would you call yourself an accomplished actor?" The audience chuckled nervously. Mark blinked, caught slightly off guard, but refusing to flinch. "Well, I've been fortunate," he said evenly. "I've worked hard, and I'm proud of the projects I've been part of." Joy's laugh, loud and dismissive, cut through the room. "Hard work or just playing the same tough guy from Boston in every movie? Because honestly, if you've seen one Mark Wahlberg performances, you've seen them all." The room went quiet. Mark's jaw tightened ever so slightly, but he kept his composure, folding his hands on the table. "Well, Joy," he said with quiet resolve, "I'd argue each character has depth if you're paying attention." "Oh, I pay attention," Joy shot back. "I just haven't seen any depth. I mean, your characters are either angry cops, angry soldiers, or angry boxers. At some point, you've got to admit you're just playing yourself." Whoopi shifted in her chair uncomfortably. "Joy," she began, but Joy waved her off. Mark straightened slightly, looking her directly in the eye. "If that's your opinion, you're entitled to it, he said. "But I think the millions of people who watch my films and find something in them to relate to might disagree." "Ah, yes, the relatable everyman," Joy sneered, air quoting with her fingers. "Only this everyman also owns mansions in Beverly Hills and wears 1,000 suits. How's that for relatable?" Mark finally allowed himself a small chuckle, though his eyes betrayed his growing irritation. "I haven't forgotten where I came from, Joy. You can be successful and still stay true to your roots." Joy's expression hardened, her voice sharpening. "Oh, please. You're as Hollywood as they come. You make millions pretending to struggle while real people out there actually do. You don't speak for working-class people. You left that behind years ago." At this, the audience fell silent again. Mark took a deep breath, his Boston accent creeping into his words. "Now, that's a hell of an assumption, Joy. You don't know me, and you sure as hell don't know where I came from." Joy leaned back, arms folded smugly. "Maybe not," she said, "but I know what I see. And what I see is a man who cashed in his street cred for a big paycheck and forgot what it means to actually have to fight for something." Mark's fists clenched under the table, though his face remained impassive. "You've got a lot to say about me, Joy," he said slowly, "but it sounds more like you're talking about yourself." The audience gasped softly, and Joy's cheeks flushed red. She sat forward, her voice growing sharper. "Oh, trust me, Mark. We'll get to me. But right now, we're talking about you, and I'm not done yet." Mark leaned back slightly in his chair, his eyes narrowing just enough to reveal the storm brewing beneath the surface. "Neither am I," he replied evenly. The stage was set, the battle lines drawn, and as the commercial break loomed, every single person in the studio and every viewer at home knew they were about to witness something unforgettable. The lights came back up and the camera started rolling again. Mark sat with his hands clasped, the faintest tension in his jawline. Behar leaned forward now, her expression gleaming with a mix of defiance and something close to glee. Whoopi and the other host sat quietly, clearly uncomfortable, their eyes darting between Joy and Mark, like they were watching two pit bulls circling each other. Joy didn't waste a second. "So Mark," she began, her tone almost sweet, but laced with poison. "This new movie of yours, let me guess, another angry Boston guy with a chip on his shoulder. Or did you finally branch out and play an angry Boston guy in a different hat?" The audience snickered nervously. Mark smiled faintly, but it didn't quite reach his eyes. "That's cute," Joy said. "But if you'd actually watched the film instead of just reading the press notes, you'd know it's about redemption. About a man trying to make things right." "Ah, redemption," Joy said mockingly, clapping her hands together dramatically. "How fitting, since your entire career has been about you trying to redeem yourself for what you did before Hollywood bailed you out." The words hit the air like a whip crack. Mark's back stiffened, but he didn't rise to it. Not yet. He stared at her, evenly, his voice calm. "You want to talk about my past? Fine. I've made mistakes. I've owned them. I've worked my ass off to make something better of my life." Joy pounced on that. Owned them or just swept them under the rug while flashing that charming smile for the cameras. "Because to me, it looks like the same old Mark Wahlberg in a nicer suit." Mark's lips tightened into a straight line. "You really enjoy tearing people down, don't you?" Joy leaned back smugly. "I enjoy calling out hypocrisy when I see it. You pretend to be this champion for the little guy, but at the end of the day, you're just another millionaire who made his money pretending to care." The audience murmured uneasily. Mark's hand tapped the arm of his chair once before he folded it in his lap again. His voice remained quiet, measured. "You don't know me, Joy. You don't know what I do when the cameras aren't rolling. And you sure as hell don't know what I care about." "Oh, but I do," Joy countered, her voice rising now, her Brooklyn edge cutting through. "You care about box office numbers. You care about image. You care about keeping your name relevant by playing the same tough guy over and over because you're too scared to take a real risk." Mark finally let out a humorless laugh, shaking his head. "You know what's funny? You sit here every day and preach about kindness and equality and progress. But the minute someone disagrees with you or doesn't fit into your little narrative, you treat them like garbage." That landed. Even Whoopi raised her eyebrows at that one. But Joy didn't flinch. "Better garbage than a fraud," she shot back, leaning forward across the table. Mark's eyes narrowed slightly, though his voice stayed even. "Is that what you think I am? A fraud? Because I've worked my entire life to prove otherwise." Joy slammed her hand on the table. "Oh, please. You think you've worked your entire life playing pretend for millions of dollars while real people, the ones you claim to speak for, actually struggle? You're a Hollywood creation, Mark. Nothing more." Mark's fist curled on the table now, his knuckles white, though he kept his tone controlled. "You can say what you want about me, but don't you dare disrespect the people who supported me. The same people you talk down to every day." Joy's laugh was sharp, cruel. "Oh, don't flatter yourself. Nobody supports you. They support the idea of you because it's easier than admitting you're just another privileged man who got lucky." The tension in the studio was so thick now it was hard to breathe. Even the camera seemed to tremble as they zoomed in on Mark's face, his jaw tight, his eyes dark. He leaned forward slightly, his words deliberate. "You've got a lot of opinions about me, Joy. But here's the thing. You don't actually want to hear anything real. You just want to win." Joy leaned in, matching him. "Oh, Mark, you don't get it. I already have." That smug smile was the final spark. Mark sat back in his chair, letting the silence hang between them like a storm cloud ready to burst. His nostrils flared slightly as he exhaled, his eyes fixed on hers. Whoopi finally spoke, her voice tentative. "Maybe we should move on to the movie," but neither of them even blinked. Joy smiled sweetly, but her eyes were full of fire. "Oh no, we're just getting started." And Mark's faint smirk, equal parts incredulous and dangerous, said it all. "You're right," he'd murmured. "We are." The studio felt like it was holding its breath. Even the audience, packed shoulder to shoulder, was dead silent now, their eyes darting back and forth between Mark and Joy like spectators at a prize fight. Mark adjusted his cufflinks slowly, almost ceremoniously, before resting his hands back on the table. His jaw was tight, but his voice stayed steady. "You really enjoy this, don't you?" he said at last, his tone sharp, but controlled. Joy raised an eyebrow, her smirk deepening. "Enjoy what?" Mark asking the questions nobody else is brave enough to ask. "No," Mark shot back, leaning forward slightly. "Enjoy humiliating people. You don't care about the truth. You care about getting your little applause lines. You care about making yourself look clever at someone else's expense." The audience murmured in agreement. In dissent, the tension bubbling over now. Joy scoffed and waved her hand dismissively. "Please spare me the wounded tough guy act. You're an actor, Mark. You're good at pretending, but you don't scare me." "Good," Mark said, leaning back, his voice low. "Because you don't impress me." The jab landed. Joy's nostrils flared as she straightened in her chair. "You know what your problem is? You've spent so much time being told how great you are. You actually believe it." Mark tilted his head, his lips curling into the faintest of smiles. "You know what your problem is? You've spent so much time tearing other people down that you've forgotten how to stand for something yourself." That one clearly cut deep. Joy sat back for half a second, her eyes narrowing before she leaned back in. "Cute line," she sneered. "But let's talk about what you really stand for. Mediocre movies, forgettable performances in a career propped up by your abs and your accent." The crowd gasped, even Whoopi winced. Mark's jaw tightened further, but he stayed seated, his voice calm. "That's rich coming from someone whose entire career has been sitting here throwing stones at people who are actually out there doing something." Joy barked a harsh laugh. "Doing what?" "Playing make-believe. Pretending to be a hero while real people like me, actually fight for something." Mark shook his head slowly. "You're confusing fighting for something with fighting everyone." The audience erupted into applause at that. A few even stood up, clapping. But Joy didn't flinch. She leaned closer, her voice dropping into a venomous hiss. "You think that little speech earns you points? Please. Your whole career has been one long Boston Street hustle, just polished up for Hollywood." Mark's eyes flickered dangerously now, the only visible crack in his composure so far. He set his palms flat on the table and leaned in so close she could see the steel in his gaze. "Say what you want about me," he said quietly. "But don't you dare insult the people I grew up with. You wouldn't last a day where I'm from." Joyce smirked, clearly thinking she had the upper hand. "Oh, what are you going to do, Mark? Take me outside. Show me how tough you really are. Maybe throw a punch like the good old days." Mark exhaled sharply through his nose, shaking his head. "That's the difference between you and me, Joy. You think strength is about shouting the loudest or throwing the first punch, but real strength is keeping your dignity when someone like you is trying to take it away." The words landed so heavily even the camera seemed to pause, waiting for her response. Joy's lips curled into a cruel smile. "Oh, Mark, you've already lost your dignity. You're just too arrogant to notice." The silence that followed was deafening. Even the studio lights seemed hotter now, the tension so thick it felt like a physical weight pressing on everyone. Mark straightened his tie slowly, his face a mask of calm, though his eyes burned with quiet fury. Then he spoke, his voice low but clear. "You know what? You're not worth it." Joy's smile faltered just for a second before she snapped. "Oh, running away now. Typical." But Mark just shook his head and stood slowly, the sound of his chair scraping the floor echoing through the silent room. "Not running," he said flatly, "walking away when it dawned while I still have my self-respect." The audience gasped, then broke into uneven applause. Some for him, some against, but all riveted. Joy leaned back, crossing her arms triumphantly, but there was a flicker of something uneasy in her eyes now, as though she realized she might have gone too far. Mark stood still for a beat, looking around the studio, then down at her. "You've shown everyone who you really are," he said simply. "And so have I." And with that, he turned toward the wings and began to walk off, the cameras following him every step of the way. Mark's footsteps echoed through the studio as he moved toward the edge of the set. He didn't rush. He didn't look back. Every stride was deliberate, measured, as if each step was part of a statement all on its own. Behind him, the studio was a storm of murmurs and nervous laughter, the audience trying to make sense of what they just witnessed. Joy sat stiffly in her chair, arms crossed, her lips pressed into a thin line. Her smirk was gone now, replaced with a strange expression that betrayed something between anger and regret. Mark paused just before reaching the curtain. Slowly, he turned back to face the audience one last time. The camera zoomed in on his face, calm yet his eyes still burning with a quiet fire. "I came here today," he began, his voice carrying clearly over the hushed crowd, "to talk about my work, to share something I believe in. I was ready for tough questions. I was ready for disagreement. But what I wasn't ready for was cruelty disguised as journalism." Joy flinched at the word cruelty, though she tried to mask it with a dismissive roll of her eyes. Mark continued, taking another step toward the center of the stage so his words could reach everyone watching at home. "People tune in here expecting honesty, a real conversation. Instead, what they get is someone using their platform to tear people down, to embarrass them, to score cheap points at someone else's expense." The audience erupted, some clapping loudly in support, others too stunned to react. A few even rose to their feet. Mark let the reaction settle before delivering his final words. "You don't have to like me. You don't even have to respect me. But don't ever think that your job gives you the right to treat people like they're beneath you. That's not journalism. That's just bullying with better lighting." Joy's mouth opened as if to respond, but no sound came out. Mark nodded once, almost as if to himself, then turned and walked the final few steps to the curtain. As he disappeared into the wings, the crowd broke into full applause, some standing, some shouting his name. Backstage, Mark's publicist and a pair of stunned producers stood frozen. He brushed past them with nothing more than a polite thank you, his face calm once more. On stage, Joy sat silently, staring at her hands. The other co-hosts, Whoopi, Sarah, Sunny, exchanged uneasy glances, clearly shaken. Whoopi finally broke the silence with a strange smile. "Well, we'll be right back after this break." But everyone in the room and everyone watching at home knew there was no coming back from what had just happened. Minutes after the cameras stopped rolling, social media exploded. Clips of the confrontation flooded Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. Hashtags like #MarkJoy, #Wahlberg walkout, and "Had the view mellowed down" began trending within hours. Fans and critics alike dissected every line, every gesture. People picked sides, some praising Joy for being fearless, others hailing Mark as the embodiment of grace under fire. But one thing was clear. The tide of public opinion was swinging hard in Mark's favor. Headlines blared. Mark Wahlberg walks out on The View and wins the room. Joy Behar faces backlash after brutal interview. Wahlberg, calm, collected, and done with the circus. Even former guests and celebrities chimed in online, many defending Mark's composure and criticizing Joy's aggressive tactics. Later that evening, Mark posted a brief statement on his social media. "It's okay to disagree. It's okay to challenge someone, but it's never okay to humiliate them. Everyone deserves respect, even when you don't see eye to eye. Thank you to everyone who reached out. I'm proud to stand for what I believe in and to walk away when necessary." It racked up millions of likes within hours. We, for her part, remained silent. The silence louder than any defense she could have offered. And so the curtain fell not just on an interview, but on one of the most dramatic, unforgettable moments in daytime television history. The day Mark Wahlberg walked onto The View, kept his cool as long as he could, and then walked out, not defeated, but victorious. What do you think? Did Mark handle it the right way? Did Joy go too far? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this story, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more incredible behind-the-scenes showdowns and untold celebrity moments. Stay tuned because the next story is just around the corner.